It was in October, the beginning of October in 2007. I was at federal prison in Victorville Federal Prison for alleged tax offenses related to the content of books that I had written. Originally, I found out that I had a tumor in my abdomen. I knew that, so I had them do an ultra scan, and they said it's a very large tumor, but it's probably just benign. I said, well, can you just do a CA-125 to make sure? And fortunately, the nurse that was there at that particular day was, we were kind of on friendly terms, and she did it for me, and it came back at 625, and it was supposed to be 0 to 35. I was diagnosed with a Leiomyosarcoma. In fact, my original diagnosis was a liposarcoma, which is a very rare sarcoma. And I was sent to, originally the hospital I was at said that it was not operable, and that then they sent me back, and the doctor I had fortunately got on the phone and just started calling and calling and calling, and he finally had a teaching hospital that would agree to take me. And so I felt blessed there, so I went into the hospital, and they told me that I had stage 4 well, they thought it was lipo, and I thought that was interesting because I got a lot of attention because of that, because they thought it was this extremely rare. I mean, the other kind of cancer, one is a fat cancer and one is a muscle cancer. And the fat cancer is so rare that they wanted to be in the medical journal, so they sent me the very best doctors that they had, so I had 6 surgeons that were there for me. In the end, they found out it was the muscle cancer, which is equally as deadly, but not as rare. And so I remember going into the hospital. I tried to keep my sense of humor through it all. I wouldn't even admit the word cancer, and I wouldn't let anybody call it cancer. I called it the alien, and I could just see this when I remember them taking the PET scan and seeing this big mass in my body, and I thought, oh my God, how did that get in there? And but I didn't want to be fearful, and I knew, because I had studied enough nutrition. While I was there, I started studying nutrition, but I think what happened was, prior to that, they sent me over to the men's facility, and they had me strip their floors, and I was locked in there, and there was no ventilation, and I was there for 10 days. And this happened about 2 months after that, and I think it screwed up my DNA, and that's what caused the cancer to come. But back to the hospital, I was just, I remember being there, and I remember a priest coming in, and I said, well, if you're here to give the last rite, you're a little too late. I'm still here. And I mean, the person that you were going to see isn't here. And so I just, I said, but, he started to leave. I said, but, do you have a Bible? And he says, yes, I do. And he gave me this little tiny Bible. And I said, thank you. And I decided to focus on 1 John because it was all about God's love. And I needed to, especially being in that situation. I didn't have my family support. I was just there alone. And I needed God. And I thought, well, this will get my mind on something else. And so I started focusing on everybody else who was there, and asking about them what their situation was. And the next night, the 6 surgeons came in, and they said, I said, well, what's your diagnosis? And they said, well, we don't think it's operable. It's too close to the vagus nerve, and it's too close to your vital organs, but we're going to try because we're a teaching hospital. And I said, okay. And they said, but you're going to have chemotherapy. I said, how long do I have to live? They said, probably 6 months, but we can extend your life with chemotherapy. And I thought that was interesting. They didn't say for how long. We can extend your life. I said, for how long? They said, well, probably for a year. And I go, and what would the quality of my life be like then? And I said, let me stop this right now. I said, I believe that the God that created my body can heal it, but can't do it without my immune system. And I know if you give me the chemotherapy, it's going to destroy my entire immune system. So I'm going to turn that down. And they said, well, then we're not going to be able to do surgery. I said, well, then you're going to have a really big malpractice suit because you just can't let me die. And they left, and I was sitting next to a prison guard, and he pulls out his Bible, and he said, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? I said, I see myself with my grandchildren. Now, at this time, I only had 1 grandchildren. I see myself playing with my grandchildren, and I see myself writing books on nutrition, and I see myself teaching the Word of God. That's where I see myself. And he handed me his Bible, and his Bible just fell open to Jeremiah 19:11. For I know I have plans for you. Plans. Plans not to harm you, but to prosper you. And for a future. I have plans for a future. And when you have cancer, those words, plans and future, are really good words to hear. And I knew at that moment that God was with me, and then every place my Bible would open to would be another verse that would tell me about the strength of God and how God was going to heal me, and that this was for a purpose. And so I knew then. And then finally, when the doctors left, I said a prayer, and I said, God, I know you're going to heal me of this. I know that. I have no doubt that I'm going to be healed. And I believe your word and not the word of man. But I said, I want to make a promise to you that because I'm telling you I have this faith, I know the only way this faith is real is if I can also tell you that I'm fearless, because otherwise I'm a liar. I said, so I'm going to prove my faith to you by getting through this whole experience without any fear. Just give me the strength I need to get through the next treatment. And God did that for me. The next day I woke up, somebody's drawing on my stomach, pictures on my stomach. I go, what are you doing? And they said, well, this is where the coloscopy bag's going to be. This is where the bladder, some apparatus is going to be. This is where something else is going to be. I go, oh my God, what, you're going to gut me? I said, is that only in a life-threatening emergency? They said, no. Ms. Meredith, you're in a teaching hospital, and we've all been given our instructions, and your surgery has been scheduled for Friday, and it's going to take 18 hours. And I looked at the nurse, and I said, did I sign a general consent form? And she said, yes, you did. I said, could you please bring it to me? And she brought it to me, and I tore it up. And I said, give me a blank one. I said, you can take out the tumor. They go, well, your intestines are blocking it, and we won't be able to get to it, so we're going to have to I'll never forget this. So we'll just have to just tie you back up and not do any surgery. And they knew that was my fear, because if I didn't get the surgery, I was a goner. And like they say, everyone wants to go to heaven, but not today. So I stuck to my grounds, and I went ahead and I said, you can take out the tumor, and you can take whatever part of my intestines that it's attached to, but you will keep the rest inside my body where they belong. I said, again, I know God's going to heal this, but I need all my parts intact for it to happen. And I realized I didn't know how much power I had, because I thought, well, maybe I don't have control over my own body here. What if they just say no and let me die? And I said, well, you know what? God's going to get you through this, so you just do what you have to do to get through it. And I did. And so they finally agreed that they were going to do the surgery, and I was so relieved. And I can remember just some random thoughts about being there. One of them was that they gave you saline water, and I was there for a month, and I'm like, well, can I have a bag that has some nutrition in it? And they said, oh, that would be a banana bag, and that's $2,500. And I thought, that is just craziness. What is going on here? And I looked at throughout the patients in the hospital, and they were all so emaciated. But remember, I told you my promise was that I was going to get through this without fear. That's what I told God. Just, give me strength, and I'll get through this without fear. But the one time I felt fear was when they were reeling me through the hospital, and I went by where they were giving the chemotherapy, and they had that skull and crossbones, and you can't go in here. My heart started pounding like it was going to just come out of my chest. It was totally uncontrollable fear on my part, and I knew that it was God telling me that I'd made the right decision. So my daughter was pregnant at the time. I couldn't talk to her. I couldn't talk to my kids. I was pretty much on my own. And my daughter was ready to have a baby. So she was in the hospital at the same time I was. She was going to have a C-section. She was at a different hospital. And so I asked her, I said, I just have to tell you, I'm not going to do this 16-hour surgery, because that was on a Friday, and she was scheduled for a C-section on Saturday. So I said, if I do that, I'm going to have to be coming back through that new baby of yours, because I'm not going to make it. And so after that, they came in and they said, okay, they were going to, keep my wishes, and they had me scheduled for surgery a Friday after that. And they did the surgery, and I was I came out of it. They had me scheduled to go into an intensive care unit, and I just felt great. Oh, and I told you I was reading 1 John, and when I got to do my surgery, somebody had told me the most important person here is your anesthesiologist, which is true, because you're asleep, you don't know what's going on. And he comes up to me and he shakes my hand and he said, "Hi, my name is John, and I'm your anesthesiologist." And I said, "Okay, this is going to be good. This is going to be great." And so that was it. I was a 2.5-hour surgery, but what if I hadn't? What if I hadn't stood up for myself? You know, and it's just, I couldn't even talk to my family because they will say, "Well, do what the doctor says." But they knew me well enough to know that I had a mind of my own, and I thought it through, and it was my body and it was my choice. And that's all I said, and they agreed with that. And they finally, right before my surgery, they let my whole family come in, and that part was really wonderful because I got to bond with them, and it was really great. You know, I think that it isn't what you do, it's what you don't do. You don't destroy your own immune system, because I decided because of that experience that I was going to focus my research on finding cures to cancer, just like you did. And I found out that the problem was the chemo. The problem was destroying your immune system, because what I have found subsequently is that there is an acid coating around all of our cells, all of cancer cells, and our natural killer cells, which are perfectly capable of destroying them, can't get to them. And so I found that enzymes, like I am a firm believer in mushroom enzymes, and because one of the things that they can do is they can take toxic waste dumps and you can plant the mushrooms in them, and then all at once there's no toxins and you can eat the mushrooms. I mean, they're pretty amazing. So they're one of the best enzymes that I have seen. And once you open up these cells, every cell in your body, not just segregated, breast cancer, bladder cancer, it's all one cellular system, and it can go in there. And I've seen, CAT scans of, this is before the mushroom treatment, this is after, and all the bumps are gone, all the tumors are gone, and it's pretty amazing. And so I can't honestly say, oh, I did this treatment or that treatment. I didn't eat any processed foods. I learned about processed foods. When you have wheat, for example, it has on the outside, the germ, the bran, and then the endosperm, and the endosperm has no nutrition, and then they strip off the bran and the germ, and they send the endosperm bread and your body doesn't know what to do with it. And I think that's what's causing cancer, is the food that people eat. And I think the biggest solution is the food, eating the right food. And that's what I did. I didn't eat anything that was bad for me. Everything that I ate, I had to buy it on the commissary, but I ate nothing but really good food. And the other key, I believe, is exercising, because I didn't have many choices like most people do. I'm going to go to this nutritionist or that. I couldn't. So I exercised, and what I learned about exercise is that it stimulates all of your natural hormones. And so that is a natural way to cure your body. And then, of course, you have your vitamin D, which, of course, is great for cancer cures. And so I exercise all the time. I probably exercised 3 times a day, ate right, and it never came back. And I kept going. By the time I was when I went in for my surgery, my CA 125 was 7,200, which is off the boards, off the hook. And then when I went back for my next checkup, it was 7. It was 7, and it never went down to 3, and it never went over 3. And just by respecting my body, respecting my Lord, and respecting this, people don't realize, you don't realize till you're faced with death, until you're faced with your own mortality, it really becomes apparent to you how magnificent your body is. And like I said, the same God that created this body can cure it, but you have to create the right environment for it. I think that's what's important. But I went through, 6 months. They said you're going to live for 6 months at the most, and maybe a year with chemotherapy, and down to nothing. And they were so surprised when I kept coming back, and the cancer never came back. It's 11 years later. I'm totally cancer-free. I'm working on writing books now. Oh, the big good news is I went back. I had 2 years worth of education. I started out at Brigham Young University. And then I went back to school after I got done because I wanted to get a degree in nutritional science, because I wanted to understand this magnificent body that we had. I wanted to understand from a biochemical perspective, because that's where the answers are. Biochemistry, to understand your body, to understand your cellular system. Here's the big problem I see. Everybody's out there trying to find a cure for cancer, but I don't know anybody that can tell you what causes it, other than eating bad food. But I think it's very important to understand, and I think that we end up with clogged cells. I think Otto Warburg figured it out a long time ago. It said, our cells are suffocating, and you need to oxygenate them. I didn't have access to internet for the longest time. I didn't get out until 2013. And I started looking it up, and your book was the first one that came up. And I thought, how fantastic. It was the first book that I ordered on the topic, and I thought, what a magnificent thing to have for people, because what you give them is hope. People need hope. You just see, oh my God, when people get a cancer diagnosis, it's like a death sentence. They're so fearful, and it's the worst feeling, and if you haven't had cancer, you don't know how the thought of not being on this earth to watch your kids and your grandkids, and it's just unbelievable. And you gave them hope, and you gave them not only hope, you gave them some really good ideas and some really good thought. And so that's how I found out about the truth about cancer. And I went onto your website and I watched all your seminars, and it was pretty great. But I was like out of the loop. Can you imagine? It was 8 years and 3 months that I had to do, and I had no contact with the outside world, no internet access. But my friends would send me in books, and I would go through and I'd read the books and I'd study the books. So I went back to college. I got straight A's. I majored in liberal studies with a focus on nutritional science and journalism, because I love to write. And my goal is to write books that are going to, from a biochemical perspective, make people understand what this is really all about. And I am so amazingly blessed, and I thank God every day for this life, because I now have 9 grandchildren, and my vision of playing with my grandchildren and writing books is coming true. And I'm here today because I want to share. I hope this story can show people that cancer is curable. And don't let yourself be fearful, because for sure when you're fearful, you're going to block your immune system, and you're going to need that. I have one more class in advanced algebra, and I'll have a bachelor's degree, a Bachelor of Science, but I've also taken 2 advanced nutritional science classes already, and I'm working on also getting a master's degree from Harvard. They have a good master's degree in journalism, because I want to make sure that my books are going to be well received, and I think that'll help things.